Now, you all know that I'm a huge fan of mock scrapes and the originator of the mock vine scrape, and they work. They simply work, and they work because they're natural. And so mock scrapes, I think that in the hunting industry, even though something natural might be better and something might be best, in the hunting industry, people are always trying to make money on products to sell you, to suck your money away. And whether it's mock scrapes, a scent that you put on mock scrapes, there's a lot of things that just aren't necessary, and we prove that with our videos. We've been doing that for years, where bucks come in, hit a mock scrape that we create. I talk about that. We have over 40 mock scrape videos on the channel in our playlist, mock scrape playlist. I urge you to check that out. But they just simply work, and we're not using any type of commercial product. Well, of course, I'm not making any money from that other than you guys coming, viewing the videos, watching them, and I appreciate folks using them from around the country and sending me all the feedback, your comments below on Instagram too, or Facebook. It's just incredible the amount of people that are using it, and then it works everywhere and people are doing it for free. So we used in this mock scrape that we're talking about and putting on a food plot, we used about 1 foot of rope, and that was it to hold the mock scrape on. So we did use some Quikrete. I have to say that. Normally I don't use Quikrete or concrete with a mock scrape video, but what we're talking about are mock scrape setup. But what we're talking about today is actually you have a small hunting plot and you have a bow stand that's appropriate for that. It's now a hunting plot, meaning it's a pass through to somewhere else. A hunting plot is not the end all be all food source in the area. It's got to be a window on the way to somewhere else, or it's not a hunting plot. That way, if it is that window, you can get in and out of the stand because deer are just moving through. If it is the end all be all for their afternoon food source, then deer are going to come to that food plot, and you might have a bow stand nearby, but you can't get in or out without the potential for spooking deer, and that's a really bad thing. We don't want to do that on any food plot. So we look at hunting plots or holding plots. Holding plot holds them till dark and sends them to a destination food plot or a destination after dark food source, adjacent ag field, hardwoods, whatever it might be, but very important that you differentiate the difference between a hunting plot, a holding plot, and then that after dark nocturnal destination plot. Most people, they talk about destination plot, big food source with a huge variety, something that's supposed to last the entire season. Well, unfortunately, people overhunt those. They're large. You invite a lot of deer from the neighborhood to there because of the overall quality, and then you spook deer. So we're trying to get away from that actual destination food plot as we talk to you and what I want you to do on your land, because again, that features nocturnal movement and we want to get away from that. So hunting plot, holding plot. When we have a hunting plot, and we have another video about this, but the best spot for a mock scrape is in front of your bow stand. I try to put a mock scrape in front of every bow stand. And it's not attracting more deer to the area. We need to get that straight. It's just defining movement. And so one quality mock scrape in front of a bow stand allows you to put a camera on it, have a stand nearby, and that buck when he comes is really focusing on that vine. But bottom line, it's taking off in 3, 4, 5 trails and narrowing it down to that one trail. The reason that you put your bow stand there in the first place is a convergence of deer movement, whether that's funnels or pinch points. We'll talk about that in another video too. So that spot you're watching where you expect to shoot a buck, that's where you put a mock scrape right in front of a bow stand. And I'm not saying that it doesn't work with a rifle and you're watching it from 180 yards, but at that point it's more just getting him into a standing position, basically a location where you can get a good rifle shot. But if they're already coming to a food plot, they're already moving through that area, in that case, I really want to put my mock scrapes in front of a bow stand. And potentially if you put a mock scrape in a location that takes them away from that bow stand location 100 yards away, then you could be doing yourself a disservice, no different than a water hole. However, when it comes to putting a mock scrape and building one in a small hunting plot, this is the best method that I've come up with and I've seen with clients. Corey Weedle, a long time ago, a client that was from about 12, 13 years ago, he's the first person I see to actually take a red cedar like this and put it with a post hole digger and put it out. And what I've seen a lot of times is people using lines to attach that and make sure it's sturdy. But we started today with a red cedar, actually a couple days ago, when unfortunately it was 95 instead of 68 right now. We cut this down and we're going to use that, and we'll go show you how we set this up in the hunting plot. Pretty cool setup, and it's easy to do. If you don't have red cedar in your area, you can see around here, we're using red cedar. we're finding one with a good sized branch, and you can see some around here. You know, this one even, it's a little bit smaller diameter, about a 5-inch diameter, but it's got a couple really nice branches coming off, and you don't need the whole length of the tree or the whole height. We want to get it up to a point where it looks natural and it looks like all of a sudden a tree grew there. And that way, any deer that comes from the area that's not familiar with that tree being there, they won't care. They'll just look at it as it's a tree. So again, very, very natural, and we can place that exactly where we want for the perfect shot from a bow stand, and that's critical. If you have a food plot that has an appropriate bow stand on it, meaning a small hunting plot on the way to a larger food source adjacent, then it could be the perfect fit, and we're going to show you how to set that up. I really want to stay away from products in the hunting industry when it comes to this. There's a lot of products made out there that you can hang scrapes from and put that system together, and really it boils down to whether you're using a red cedar, a jack pine up north, a small white oak bushy tree or red oak bushy tree. You're looking at trees, I mean, even a beech nut tree. You have to look at the species. A jack pine will last fairly long. Red cedar will last a long time. White oak, red oak will last a long time. So you're looking for something with strong branches that you can hang a mock scrape from, hang a vertical licking branch. And I wanted to choose one that I had 3 or 4 branches to hang from, because these are going to eventually be dead, obviously. And if we get a buck really working it is possible you could break that branch, especially when there's not as much give to that branch because it's not fresh, it's dried out and old. So there's a lot of different options for trees you can do this with, but I'd always recommend trees. Again, there's a lot of products out there that you could spend your money on, but hey, you know, just like the vine that's hanging there, it's natural. Natural's always best. Like I said, we're gonna use a foot of rope. We used a foot of rope on this to hang the vine from, but other than that, it's all natural. Natural's always best. There's no man-made product that you can put out, a ribbon or a rope or something else that can replace a mock scrape. You have to think about that vertical branch that we're putting there. This one's going to be about 6 feet long, I think, in this location, but that gets it up to the branch height, doesn't make it stick out. You always want at least that length, 5-6 feet, and if it's longer and you're bringing that up a lot higher to where you have to attach it, then I'd even urge up to a 7 or 8 foot vine. You want that height of that, or that weight of that 3/4 inch to 1 inch diameter, because then the reason deer are using this, bucks, does, and fawns, right over a location where you want them to travel, is they're just rubbing their preorbital gland scent on it. It's a way they can communicate with each other. I don't know how many deer they can smell on the end of that, but it's actual real deer from the area leaving their scent on that, and it's hard to argue with that process. Again, if you want to check out and continually look at exactly how we set these mock scrapes up and why, there's over 40 videos that you can check out on the playlist that we've created for you to help teach you and educate you on this process. We're going to skip over to this hunting plot. We'll show you how it's set up real quick, and can't wait to show it to you because the deer already hit it. We had a deer hit it on the cell cam within 5 hours of making it, so pretty cool, and we're going to expect deer to hit that almost every day now. So here we are over to the hunting plot, and part of the problem with this plot location, it's a great location. We have about 40 foot wide of switchgrass across the top of this food plot. So we were giving up some food plot space because I wanted to make sure it was secure getting in and out. And then on the other side of that brush line, we have another 40 foot strip of switch against the property line. So we can come in, we can get in here very easily without spooking deer. We're actually coming to well, it'll be a redneck blind stuck in that cluster of gray dogwood, old gray dogwood in there. And we'll actually come through the end of the switchgrass, come through a tunnel and get up in that. So we'll be able to get up and down that redneck without spooking any deer out here, and that's key to any bow stand. And so that's what makes this work. It's a bow stand location. We have a great tree over here. We have some good branches for licking branches, but it put it off at over a 40-yard shot, 42 yards, 43, something like that. And just with a bow, I didn't want that. So we came up with the red cedar here, and I wish I had some video of dragging it, but Dylan wasn't here, and I'm not good at getting all the pieces sometimes, but you guys will get the point. But we had to drag it a couple hundred yards from the other spot, 300 yards where we actually cut it down. And we chose this because it had several large, heavy branches on here where we could potentially hang mock scrapes in case one breaks. You know, this tree obviously isn't going to live. We cut it down. And so I wanted to make sure that we had this in the perfect location for a shot. And then also we took into account behind me where we could place a camera or two and watch this at all times, including the whole video. So it makes it so we can position them for the shot. You know, again, the mock scrapes aren't attracting more deer to this food plot. They're already coming here because of the food. The mock scrape is just defining where they move through the plot. And this also matches up with trails that cut through the goldenrod back there and ragweed and onto the other side, onto more of an acre size food plot. So this is more of a third of an acre, half of an acre, something like that. And then we have trails that connect the two. We have a lot of trails that come from the bottom down here where they bed, and they're actually going out the trail that we use to come in here on the side-by-side. So they're actually coming through, right, they're moving this way and back and forth. So this is about that X of movement, sets up perfectly for the blind location. And you know, frankly, I don't want this mock scrape to be 15 yards from a redneck blind. That redneck will hide really nicely in there, or we wouldn't be putting it here and using it as a bow setup. But I don't want it to be right on top of it, just the same with a water hole. Now, we're not adding a water hole out here because I'm putting a mock scrape at every stand location. I'm not putting a water hole at every stand location. The deer are already coming here because of the food. Water is more of an attraction. It still defines movement. Mock scrapes define movement, but I want a mock scrape at every stand location. I found that that's not too many, but water holes, let's say this chunk of property right here is 67 acres. It could support 3 or 4 water holes. I don't want to waste one in a location I already have an attraction. So a water hole is actually going to go about 100 yards that way on another stand location that offers us different winds, different approach, morning, evening, and we're not coming into food like a morning situation and potentially spooking deer off. So we were able to drag this red cedar over. You can see it's pretty sturdy, pretty heavy. And then what we did is I used a post hole digger to go down about 2 feet, hollowed it out quite a bit at the bottom. It happens to be right on rock. I tried to get this as level as possible, and I filled it with quickcrete around it in anticipation of the rain coming. I didn't even bring out rain, so that moisture will get into that concrete, set it, and you can see right now it is extremely sturdy. It's not even moving at all. So it's going to stay here, it's going to stay here, and in these situations I've seen small trees. That's why I like using something a little bit more stout. You know, this, where we cut it off down here at the base, the diameter was at least 6 inches. Now you can see right up into here, it's still very sturdy. It has these branches coming off. And so this will last for several years. And like I said, if this branch breaks, we have this one we can hang from. We actually have 4 solid branches we can hang another mock scrape from and use it. And I wouldn't be surprised if a scrape takes place even back on this side over here, and that's going to be okay because it's still in the same shooting window. So I don't really care if there's more than one in this exact highly defined location. And then the cameras back there will catch it no matter where they're scraping. We already have some decent deer coming through this area. So pretty easy to get it installed, get it leveled. And again, something like this that's natural is a really great option for you. I also like the fact they rub red cedar a lot. And so we do have this branch on the other side. I use that almost for balance because it's so top heavy this way. But bottom line is they can come and rub this from any angle. I suspect we'll get a rub on this eventually, but the rubs aren't really that important. We might have a buck that rubs this and then nothing else touches it for the entire season. We'll watch that from over there. Perfect rubbing tree, but this is an example where we can actually watch deer rubbing versus scraping, but I bet you they'll scrape this 20-to-1 over rubbing it. And that's why rubs, anywhere I see them, fake rubs, mock rubs, horizontal rubs, are a very, very low attractant. It's pretty cool. Like I've said before, I could put a jar of peanut butter. I've seen this on client properties where they actually have a lid here. They fasten it to the tree, and then you can take a cutout piece of peanut butter and put that there, or peanut butter jug, and the deer can lick the peanut butter out of the inside of the jug, and you can attach it right to the tree. That doesn't mean it's highly defining movement. It doesn't mean that it's a calling card for every deer in the area. It's just a small food source. Where this right here, we can put a couple dozen deer scent on the end of this branch because they'll go up and rub it and lick it with their preorbital glands and around their nose. They smell it, and then they treat it pretty sacred. And what you'll find is they're rarely even making the scrape that we have here. We did that just to start it with a visual. You see deer tracks in here already. Again, we had one come up here and leave it scent on within just 5 hours of us putting it here. So it's a great way to get a mock scrape on a small hunting plot in the perfect location for a shot. And you know, we're gonna have another video about this, but again, it boils down to where should you put a mock scrape? You should put one in front of every bow stand and have the potential for a camera on it. Whether you do or not, it's not the point. It's defining movement in that location. It's bringing several trails into one. And this will be a bow stand. We want a mock scrape here. That's why we're putting it here. We're putting a water hole off to the side of this. I don't want to waste that attraction right here when I can have a great cruising in the woods away from this plot location back there. And by the way, that redneck blind there, we're notching out a hole in these two locations to look at the other food plot on the other side. That other food plot is about 60 yards from here is where it starts. So we'll be able to sit and watch this small bow hunting plot right there, but then we'll be able to shoot over there with a shotgun or muzzleloader during gun season and cover that entire food plot over on the other side, or at least a strong portion of it. So this redneck will be a perfect location, kind of like we have in some of the other spots where we can double it as a bow stand and a gun stand. In this spot right here, as a bow stand and as a small hunting plot, was a perfect location for this red cedar tree. It'll last for several years. Again, white oak, red oak, jack pine are some great options. Beech nut trees, bucks love to rub and scrape beech nut trees. So you kind of think about it, you know, I'm looking at like this red cedar is probably one of the best for lasting a long time and not becoming too brittle. Like say for example, an aspen bush that's out in the open growing a little bit, that bark or that tree is just so soft. It's such a soft wood. There's not a lot of resin in it or anything, so it's going to break and dry out quickly. Beech nut would work okay, but especially a good oak bush, and then jack pine. But you know, whatever they're rubbing in your area, sometimes hemlock could even be decent area in the right location. If you can find young hemlocks that you could even do this with. Red cedars are easy to find, so that's why we're using it. But again, you know, great way to get a mock scrape into a small hunting plot location. And I hope it makes sense. For more strategy on mock scrapes, using mock scrapes, check out again the mock scrape playlist. We have over 40 videos on our YouTube playlist here for mock scrapes. And while you're at it, make sure to check out the web classes I have on how to design your parcel. I have one, and then how to design your food plot program is a separate web class. They both can point in the right direction, keep you from making mistakes, but bottom line, keep you from spending a lot of money and a lot of time headed in the wrong direction.